Hey everybody, welcome to the second edition of the Dear Old State Update. I'm Joey David, joined alongside Ethan Ellis. As we are midway through the semester, our beat reporters have continued to work on their respective fields, with some of the sports from the winter beginning to start up.
That's right, Joey. Penn State sports are dominating right now with 7 sports ranked. We're here to break down all the teams and provide some insight for the rest of the season. So let's get into it.
Starting first, we need to look at one of, if not the biggest, matchups for Penn State football. The team is coming off of a decisive victory over UMass and now have their sights set on number 3 Ohio State. Cailey Thalman and Amanda Vogt have more.
Thanks, Joey. Penn State football is staring down their toughest contest yet, the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Nittany Lions demolished UMass last weekend 63-0, but a shutout victory is unlikely to occur again as Penn State heads into a sea of red into the shoe to face a strong, undefeated Ohio State team. Now, Amanda, toughest contest yet, obviously a shutout win for Penn State last weekend. What do you like about Penn State's performance against UMass?
Well, against UMass, they shined on all aspects of play, special teams, offense, and defense. Daquan Hardy on special teams becoming the first player in history at Penn State to have 2 punt returns go for 2 touchdowns. And that was the spark that ignited the rest of the game to force a shutout. And on defense, you have 7 sacks and 1 interception. And on offense, Drew Aller and the rest of the offense, specifically the tight ends, really shined brightly at a 3:30 matchup in the rain. A bunch of fans in the stands regardless, and they still proved why they should be a top contender and heading out of the bye week, just building up even more confidence before hitting the road yet again.
Absolutely, and Penn State came in and did exactly what they were supposed to do against UMass with a very complete game that they put out. But Ohio State is a whole other beast for the Nittany Lions to take down. They haven't been able to do it on the road since 2011, and at home they haven't beaten Ohio State since 2016. What do they have to do to beat Ohio State on the road?
Well, you can't start slow, and that was a bit of an issue even against UMass with the first offensive fumble of the entire season. You can't do that. You can't give Ohio State the ball more times than they will get it within those 60 minutes. And the third quarter is also going to be extremely pivotal. This is where Penn State has dominated. This is where they've pulled away from their opponents, and the defense has not allowed 1 single touchdown at all this season, any points the entire 15 minutes coming out of the halftime. And so that's a chance where Franklin comes out of the tunnel and tells his team it's 0-0. So that's where you really see in the offense go to new heights, partially because of the momentum built on the defensive side of the ball as well.
The defense for Penn State is going to be so important, and they've been so good on defense all year, only allowing 15 points or fewer, and those 15 points came in their first game against West Virginia. And I think taking advantage of a new quarterback on Ohio State's side with Kyle McCord is going to be so important. Defensive turnovers for Penn State, whether that be fumbles or interceptions, are going to be huge to getting them that momentum. And the most important thing when it comes to the defense is strong defensive play gives Drew Aller the ball more. And possession is going to be really important against an Ohio State team that is phenomenal. And the other thing that I think is going to be really important is the running backs. Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton have not reached 100 yards yet in a game this season, and Nicholas Singleton did it 4 times in 4 separate games last season. So I think explosive plays coming from the running backs are going to be really important.
Yeah, and this offense is going to have to find that balance between explosiveness and conservativeness and truly find the way that it's going to take to beat this team. Franklin hounds on it every week that there's several ways to win a football game, and what way Penn State will do it will be the most important on any given week. And specifically on the defense, when you look at last year's game, it's hard to compare it to what we're going to see this year. There's been so much turnover on both rosters, completely new quarterbacks in Drew Aller and Kyle McCord when you had Sean Clifford and CJ Stroud last year. So it's 2 different heads taking the snaps, and now you have to see, okay, so there's so much depth to this Penn State roster. You see it on defense. So how can it improve when Ohio State last year carved up the secondary and made those drives down the field? And you had turnovers be a huge problem for Penn State when you have defensive end JT Tuimoloau having 2 sacks and 2 interceptions from Sean Clifford really give Ohio State that fourth quarter surge to shut down the Nittany Lions. And their other strong players just dominating Penn State from a hole and just shutting them down. But if Penn State can find the balance to maybe throw a deep ball, you have the weapons, you have the wide receivers, and you have the tight ends, but that run game, like you said, has to be established early, because if Ohio State saw Penn State's game when they're watching the film, they see Tyler Warren catch one touchdown pass, Theo Johnson with 2 touchdown receptions. You're going to shut down your tight ends. You're going to shut down the wide receivers. You don't have Parker Washington this year, but you have Keandre Lambert-Smith. Utilize these running backs. Get Trey Potts in the mix. It just depends how you want it to add up to a win, and Penn State has to find a different way in Columbus.
And you bring up the last time these two teams faced off, Penn State lost by 13 points in a heartbreaker for Penn State fans, because Penn State was not even supposed to compete with Ohio State last year, and they did that until the final 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. And to me, that lit a fire under the Nittany Lions, because they have since gone 11-0, scoring more than 30 points in every single game they've played since. So I think the Nittany Lions are going to come out so strong against the Buckeyes on Saturday. Penn State will head into the Shoe this Saturday to attempt to defeat the number 3 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, a team that has been untouchable for the Nittany Lions since 2016. This battle has the potential to implicate the Big Ten East and the college football playoffs, so a win on Saturday is necessary to both teams. We'll check back after Saturday to see how this contest played out. Back to you, Ethan.
Thanks, Kaylee and Amanda. So, Joey, what would you say the biggest key to Penn State's victory this weekend is?
I think, honestly, the biggest key for this team to go and beat this great football team is to keep doing what they've been doing, honestly. Keep playing turnover-free offensive football, but they're going to have more explosiveness on the offense and have the big playability of these star players that Penn State has on offense to be there and be often if they're going to be successful.
You're definitely right. Drew Allar has a huge challenge in front of him this weekend as he travels to the Horseshoe. Moving on, the Penn State soccer team seasons are in full swing. The men's team is coming off a big upset over Northwestern, while the women's team is still undefeated. Here to break it all down are beat reporters Ashley Mascaro and Michael Landis.
Thanks, Ethan. Both Penn State men's and women's soccer teams are back up at the top of their conferences this season and have some high ambitions. Ashley, we've seen some elite play so far this season from the women's team. What can you tell me so far about how they've been doing? Obviously, they're undefeated so far.
Well, Michael, you're right. They have been playing at an extremely high level. I mean, last year going so far in the NCAA tournament, and this year they're looking to do the same thing and go even further this year. Their defensive line has to be one of the best in the entire country. I mean, they are unstoppable. The defensive line is really hard to get past. I mean, Catherine Asman, the goaltender, she has only let in 7 goals in 15 games. Like, that is really, really good. And it all starts with her in the back. Everything else just goes up from there. The offense, they get off to a slow start sometimes, but they still get the job done. We have Peyton Linehan, Olivia Borgen, and Caitlin McBean. They are the top 3 goal scorers on the team, and they are just 3 of the names of the women's team that are just killing it. They are all going up there. They're putting in 100% effort, and I don't see any reason why they can't be at the top of their section this year. Now, let's look on the other side of the men's team. Tell me how you think they're doing. You think they're doing okay? Do you think now that they're kind of getting the ball rolling again, where do you think they're going to go this year?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think a lot of teams are kind of not really seeing that this men's team has done a lot so far, but guess what? They've done amazing so far. They're 7-2-3. They're 3-1-1 in conference play so far. And I know the goals haven't exactly been there. The offense has maybe not been flowing as much. But guess what? On the season, they're playing great. They've scored 20 and only allowed 9. Chris Shakes is looking like an All-American goalie this season. He has had some impeccable saves. I mean, he is carrying this team right now. And guess what? His guys are stepping up for him. They played Northwestern this week, ranked number 12 in the country, and they came out with a W at home. A huge game for them, where they were down 1-0. But the biggest thing that I saw from them was a true sign of resiliency. They were down in the second half. They scored a goal, tied at 1-1. And, you could have just went for the tie. You could have left. You could have played defensive. But guess what? They stayed aggressive, and Peter Mangione came in and scored the game-winning goal for them, and they ended up holding on to that. These are the kind of games that can change the course for a team for the entire season. And on the season, they are 1-0-3 against ranked teams. They have not lost a single game against ranked teams so far. They've really only had one rough game against UPenn where they lost 3-0 at home. But besides that, they've looked great this season. And honestly, if they keep up this kind of play with that back line led by Femi Owadesu, I mean, this team could really make some noise and, they could go back to another Big Ten title again. Now let's take a look at the aforementioned most recent game against Northwestern. The energy was high, the lights were shining, and it was a huge opportunity for Penn State's matchup against undefeated Northwestern. The Nittany Lions looked for a bounce-back game after falling to Indiana at home 2-1 a week ago. Penn State was playing in front of their massive home crowd, who were all bundled up for their chilly blackout game. Both teams went back and forth throughout the first half, moving the ball well and getting good shot opportunities. Despite Penn State's multiple opportunities in front of the goal, they were unable to put any of them away. Just when it seemed like it was going to be a tie game going into the half, Northwestern got a breakaway and buried their opportunity to take a 1-0 lead. The defense, led by Femi Owodesu, locked it down, and goalie Chris Shakes made 3 clutch saves to keep the Nittany Lions in front. After being down 1-0 in the second half against Northwestern, Penn State showed their resiliency, scoring 2 goals and locking it down on defense completely. Goalie Chris Shakes had some incredible saves to keep the Nittany Lions in the lead as Peter Mangione scored the go-ahead game-winning goal. The fight from Penn State was relentless as they finished the game off, handing Northwestern their first loss of the season and notching a huge Big Ten win against the number 12 ranked team in the country. Their next home game will be Sunday, October 22nd against Michigan. Both the men's and women's teams will look to continue their pushes this season. Now back to you, Joey and Ethan.
Thanks, Michael and Ashley. With men's soccer playing at Rutgers on Tuesday and looking forward to senior night on Sunday, there's definitely a lot of excitement brewing for the squad. On the women's soccer side, hosting Indiana Thursday and looking to stay undefeated at their pink match, this is shaping up to be a huge week for Penn State soccer. Moving from land to sea, there is something that Sports Night is shining a light on, and that is Penn State crew that is going off to a hot start this season. Ethan has moved over to the monitor to talk to Esteban Marenco, a rower on the team, to talk about the team's recent success.
Thanks, Joey. Here I am with Esteban Marenco, who is both a member of Penn State Sports Night and a member of the crew team. He was one of the rowers on the novice men's 8 boat at last weekend's Head of the Ohio in Pittsburgh. I understand this regatta was your first official one of the season, and based on the gold medal you have here with you today, it looks like you guys did pretty good. Talk to us about the race and what led to the victory.
Thank you, Ethan. You know, going into this race, we all individually on the boat had things we had to focus on, whether it be, you know, rowing a certain way or getting our timing right. But as a collective team and the 8 guys on the boat, the one thing we all had in common was that we wanted it. We were hungry. When we sat in the boat, we knew it wasn't going to be pretty. I mean, we were all tired. We knew, as we started rowing, we saw the rough waves, but I think our training speaks volumes to how prepared we were for that. These past couple weeks, especially the ones leading up to the race, the fog at the lake that we track set in Bald Eagle Park prevented us from getting a lot of water time. So we were stuck in white building with our erg machines, the rowers, just practicing, getting stronger and stronger. And let me tell you, that really paid off. I mean, I could not imagine me doing 2 races without the training, as you can see here.
So speaking of training, what has practice really looked like for you guys leading up to this big competition?
Yeah, so practice, it's intense. It's not for everybody. We get up and we're on our way to the lake, which is in Bald Eagle State Park at 5:30 every morning. We get there, we row, we do our stretches, and a lot of times, especially recently because weather's been changing, there's been a lot of fog. And when there's fog, we end up having to practice in the white building, as you can see here on the erg machines, where I'm going to be real honest, we get very strong. I mean, that's definitely what prepared us to perform so well in the 2 races at the Head of the Ohio. Without this training, I don't think we would perform the way we did. That being said, we also train with the women's team. I mean, they're in there with us every single day, on the erg machines, on the water, and at 11 boats we raced at the Head of Ohio, 6 of us got medals. That is an absurd number. I don't think any other team at the regatta got the same number of medals as us. And I think that speaks volume to how well we're challenging ourselves to do this season and into the spring. Because in the spring is when we have things like ACROS, which is nationals, where we have goals. We are ambitious. We want to do well.
Well, thank you, Esteban. This all sounded really interesting, and it's just the start of the season, so good luck to you guys, and I'm looking forward to see how the rest of the season goes. Back to you at the desk, Joey.
Thanks, guys. A great showing for the squad, and for someone who has not really been familiar with crew, I will definitely be giving it more of a following now.
The women's hockey team is deep into a season that has already included an upset win over number 5 Northeastern. Here to recap that matchup and others is Josh Bartosik and Adrianna Gallucci.
Thanks, guys. Penn State women's hockey had a grueling gauntlet of out-of-conference games for the second straight season, finding themselves at 1-6-1 before CHA play starts this upcoming weekend against Syracuse. Let's take a look at how it all went down.
For the second consecutive season, the Penn State Nittany Lions find themselves in a hole to start the year, thanks to an out-of-conference schedule that featured 3 top 10 teams in the nation. After losing several key players this past offseason, bumps and bruises were to be expected out of the gate. However, a 1-6-1 record was not the start the Nittany Lions wanted coming off a CHA championship winning season. The main culprits to the slow start has been scoring woes for the blue and white, who find themselves averaging just 1.3 goals per game and are yet to eclipse 2 tallies in any contest this season. Alongside the scoring drought are 2 special teams units that have been anything but for Penn State. The Nittany Lions continuously find themselves in the box, averaging 4.5 penalties per game, leading to the opposition scoring on the power play 30% of the time. When Penn State has the extra skater, the blue and white have only found the back of the net twice on 25 attempts, something head coach Jeff Campersall is urging to improve.
We have our chances for power play. It needs to be like way simpler, crisper passing, playing on the forehand.
For the Penn State Nittany Lions, it might seem like all hope is lost record-wise, but they've been in this situation before, specifically last season, and they'll try and take some positives from this out-of-conference stretch before CHA play begins.
While players like Tessa Janicki have started off slow, Caitlin Roberts has started to heat up, with tallies in both losses to Cornell this past weekend. It's safe to say the flashes of brilliance have been welcomed, but Campersall wants to see a full 60 minutes as Penn State looks to begin its CHA title defense this coming weekend.
At some point, the experience of playing these elite programs will get us ready for what we need to do for the rest of the year.
So, Adrianna, the Nittany Lions are not boasting the best record, just 1 win through 8 games, but like we already mentioned, a very tough out-of-conference schedule. What have you seen so far in those performances?
Well, the Nittany Lions lost a ton of talent from last year, losing seniors like Ellery Mackay, like Renee Gangarosa, losing Kiara Zanin in the transfer portal to Ohio State. Obviously, that took the Nittany Lions down a few notches. They did bring in some talent, retaining people like Tessa Janicki from last season, but it's still not the same CHA championship winning team that they had last year. Plus, they had a really tough out-of-conference slate. Teams like Northeastern, teams like Colgate, teams like Cornell, those are all really great teams, and they say you can't win them all. They went 1-6-1 against these teams. And now that's not to say that the entire team just didn't perform well. Caitlin Roberts had a really great series at Cornell. Both of us witnessed it firsthand, scoring in both of those games. Maggie McEachern as well, putting in time with the Nittany Lions, the transfer. She's already been named the CHA Defensive Player of the Month and Defensive Player of the Week for that as well. So it's just coming in, playing hard, picking up those conference games when they go out to Syracuse. So switching over to that, going to Syracuse, what does this team need to do to keep their momentum and try to get back into the win column?
Yeah, well, it's going to be something about that goldfish mentality, forget and move on. They have had really strong second games of the series, but not great first games of the series. They got to get off to a better start. Really good at game 2 against Northeastern. That's the game they won. Really good game 2 against UConn. They tied that game. Really good game 2 against Colgate. They kept it close, and in game 2 against Cornell, it was close until that midway point of the second period. So they've been in this situation before. If you take away that Franklin Pierce series that they had near the end of their out-of-conference slate last year, the Nittany Lions also had a losing record going into conference play because they were playing tough teams like Colgate again, like Wisconsin, Minnesota Duluth, teams like that. So for the Nittany Lions, it's going to be a lot on taking this tiny victories. They're not going to win them all, like you already mentioned, and the record's not great, but CHA plays where it really matters, where you get that NCAA tournament bid per chance. And even though they've only scored 10 goals through 8 games, they're yet to score more than 2 goals in a game. The defense and the goaltending have proved for the Nittany Lions that they can win a game or keep you in a game when needed. So for the Nittany Lions, ride the hot hand when you can, which is that defense and the goaltending, until the offense picks it up. Similar to the men's team, they had some question marks about offense. The defense has been doing the job for them. So the women's team have to do the exact same thing, playing a struggling Syracuse team just lost to RPI a few weeks ago. So a chance to get off on the right foot for CHA play, and there's no perfect time to do it than on the road against the Orange. Penn State kicks off conference play against the Orange this Saturday at 1 p.m., and the blue and white will look to right the ship before they start to sink. Joey and Ethan, back to you.
Thanks, Josh and Adrianna. Now, Ethan, I'm going to look over to you. After a really slow start for women's hockey, what do they have to do to get back on the right track?
Well, Joey, you're definitely right. The Penn State women's hockey team has not been off to the start that they wanted, but what they do have coming up is conference play, and that's where it really is going to get important for them to start getting wins out. This is really what's going to make or break their season, and it's really going to determine if they're going to make the postseason or not.
Now, with all this great action, here are some of our top plays filmed by our beat reporters. Starting off with women's hockey, where goalkeeper Josie Bothan makes a quick save and quickly moves over to the other side of the crease for the second save, stopping a Cornell attack.
Now here we have Penn State men's soccer in the danger zone here against Northwestern. The pass goes across and is kicked up, but Chris Shakes gets airborne for the save.
Daquan Hardy returns a punt for Penn State and takes it all the way back to the house. That was his first of 2 punt return touchdowns in the victory over UMass.
Now we're going to go back to Penn State women's hockey. Here we have Caitlin Roberts taking it down the ice, and she flips it in for the score.
Senior forward Peter Mangione scores his 6th goal of the year after a defensive miscue from Northwestern.
That's all we have for this edition of Dear Old State Update. Be sure to follow Penn State Sports Night all season long for updates and analysis on your favorite Penn State teams.
For Ethan Ellis and the entire team here at Penn State Sports Night, I'm Joey David. Have a great night, and remember, we are Penn State Sports Night.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and follow our socials down below.
And as always, we are
Penn State Sports Night.